You're a registered nurse who's hit 30,000 steps a day. You've charted, triaged, lifted heavy ass patients that weigh 500 pounds. You've ran a code, brought people back to life. You've done all these things, all this activity during your shift, and your scrubs still don't fit. If you've looked at your Apple Watch after your shift and thought, how am I still gaining weight even though I never sit down? You need to stay with me because I'm gonna go over exactly what's going on and why everything you know about movement to lose weight is wrong. Here's the thing nobody tells registered nurses. Not all movement is the same. Now I recognize walking 12 hours, sometimes even 14, 15-hour shifts, that's real, that's intense. But it's not the same type of movement that equates to building lean muscle and getting that toned, sexy, feminine physique that you want. You're working those 12-hour shifts, you're lifting heavy patients, you're stressed, you're doing all this activity. And I understand why you may correlate activity to progress because after your shift, you're exhausted. You look at your Apple Watch, you've walked 15,000 steps, you've walked 30,000 steps. But again, these things under a body that's stressed is not the same. They don't create the environment for actually losing the weight consistently and building the physique which you want. Let me give you an example. I'm sure you've seen construction workers throughout your life, right? And most of the time, you can see that these construction workers are usually heavy-set people, right? They got big bellies, they're big guys, but they're out there all day working with these heavy machineries, sometimes using the jackhammer, moving heavy equipment, heavy tools, for 12 plus hours, right? Just like you guys, they're working long, egregious hours. But most of the time, they're unhealthy. They look bigger. They definitely got big bellies, right? So you would think that all that movement and they're lifting heavy stuff too. You would think that they would be in shape. But again, not all movement is the same. So what's actually happening? How does stress prevent the body from not being able to burn fat, burn calories, especially when you're doing all this activity, all this movement? Because a body filled with cortisol, a body that is chronically stressed, is not the right conducive environment for it to stop releasing energy. Remember, to the body, fat is energy. Fat is stored energy. So when a body feels this chronic state of stress, your cortisol levels are through the roof, off the charts, it is not going to release that stored energy, right? Because that is the environment you're creating. You're creating a survival mode environment when there's so much cortisol in the body, right? Our bodies, especially as we get older, are working off of a hormonal cycle, right? It's not black and white. It's not input output, right? Our hormones are signaling to the body how we should respond internally, how we should orient ourselves. And the body does not like to burn extra resources, extra energy when it's chronically stressed, right? So registered nurses usually have a chronically stressed lifestyle, right? You're working 12-hour shifts, making critical decisions. You're under a lot of stress, right? Every machine beep, every code, every new patient admit, every stressful encounter with a family member, a stressful encounter with management, you're having micro increases in your cortisol that is leading to an overwhelming secretion of cortisol at the end of your shift, which is keeping you from being in a comfortable state for your body to release that fat, regardless of if you got 15, 20, or even 30,000 steps in that shift. And you guys know that cortisol is not meant to be in your body throughout the day, right? It's supposed to start in the morning, a little burst of cortisol, the stress hormone wakes you up, gets you active, productive to do all these things. But the problem, again, is when it's chronically being secreted into your system throughout 12-hour shifts, especially if you're doing rotating shifts, days to nights, and even nights is even bad because now your circadian rhythm is off. And then all this cortisol this is what's leading to the hunger cravings, right? The sugar spikes, and especially if you're not eating well, if you're under fueling because you're always tired because you're working 12-hour shifts, right? You see this detrimental circle that a lot of nurses are operating under. And again, the hot nurse protocol breaks that cycle, right? Breaks that cycle and gets you on a better system so that you can actually have energy, right? But these nurses who are working 12-hour shifts, underfueled, chronically stressed, and 30,000 steps is actually working against you because that's producing more cortisol in your system because the apparatus that you're working under of working a lot, high stress, not taking care of your body, underfueling, not sleeping well, that is furthermore exacerbating your stress, right? So the 30,000 steps is actually counterproductive, and we need to fix the foundational things, the sleep, the recovery, the stress, before we now build that consistency with your steps and your movement and your activity, which will create the environment for you to actually start to lose the weight. Especially for my nurses who are perimenopausal or even in menopause, your metabolism is slowed down 30%. And usually cortisol and estrogen are like fighting each other, right? Your hormonal palette is all over the place and is not regulated. So this adds in further barriers on consistently losing the weight, because now your hormonal systems are out of whack, right? Your internal systems are out of whack, right? And then again, walking 30,000 steps without fueling yourself properly, without getting enough recovery, without having consistent stress management, this is what's keeping the body to hold on to that stubborn belly fat, especially, right? Because we have significantly more cortisol receptors in our belly, right? So that's why sometimes you may do some stuff and lose some weight in your arms, your neck, some subcutaneous fat, right? But the belly fat is still prominent because that's a clear indication that you're chronically stressed. You're under a lot of stress. And again, the belly, the abdominal wall, has more cortisol receptors than anywhere else in the body, right? So that's why that belly fat is so hard to let go. So if you're still watching this is probably not your first attempt trying to lose this weight, trying to figure out how to be consistent with your health while working 12-hour shifts. Now, most of the time, conventional programs, conventional methods of losing weight just don't work for registered nurses. They don't. I'm sure you've probably heard eat less, move more, right? Again, we just went over how that is counterproductive for a registered nurse's lifestyle, because she probably has high stress, high cortisol, especially if she's going through menopause. Her hormonal balance is out of whack, right? So moving more is signaling more stress to the body, and eating less is signaling more stress on the body. So you're compounding the stress that you already have. And obviously this is not going to lead to the outcome you want of losing the weight, of building a very sexy toned physique. It's just not going to get you there because of all that stress. So what is going to work? All right, we need to not only lower the stress, but we need to control the stress, right? So two methods I'm going to give you right now that, in the Hot Nurse Protocol, we have a stress management system. This is actually what I helped MedStar Hospital create when I was working with them during COVID. So I'm going to give you guys 2 stress management options right now to help you control but also reduce the overall production of stress in your body, right? Number 1, grounding. This is a phenomenal stress management option, scientifically proven to reduce stress significantly, right? So, and you only need about 10-15 minutes, right? 2 ways you can ground. Either you can be outside barefoot on the grass or dirt or sand. If you're, by the beach, you're in PST, I'm jealous. So you can be barefoot on the grass, sand, or dirt. Or you can place, I like to do both hands. One hand, it's gonna be good, but both hands is obviously more effective. We want to place both hands on a tree because the tree is connected to the ground. Now, what is this actually doing? This is discharging yourself into the earth. We know that we run off of electromagnetic frequencies, right? We have positive charges, we have negative charges. So the earth actually helps neutralize those charges in our body. And that's what kind of relieves a tension off of our body and makes us feel really, really good. Now, especially with the combination of doing this outside, especially by nature, right? We know that trees, plants, nature releases phytokines into the surrounding air around them, right? And those phytokines actually help your body chemistry, your biochemistry, right? They do help you feel better by activating your parasympathetic nervous system, right? Those phytokines actually help stimulate the vagus nerve, give a feeling of calmness, and they actually relax you down, right? So it's a combination of the grounding, the practical grounding, plus you being in that atmosphere surrounded by those phytokines that are kind of releasing those endorphins as well in your body, right? So a dual approach to the stress in that one option, right? The second option is a form of hormetic therapy, right? So this is when you push your body to an extreme, right? Momentarily and controlled, your body reacts to it in a very advantageous way. Let me explain. So when we put ourselves in extreme heat, the body wants to cool itself down. When we put ourselves in extreme cold, the body wants to warm ourselves up, right? So I generally like to, if you have like this kind of facility by you, find a spa center. They usually have a cold plunge and they usually have steam room or hot tubs. So I go from cold plunge to hot tub, back to cold plunge, back to hot tub, back to cold plunge, and you flip flop for about 15 minutes, right? But you want to always end with cold because your body will naturally warm you up, right? So when you get into these extreme temperatures, right, your body is cooling itself off or heating itself up, right? This is phenomenal for stress because it really stimulates the vagus nerve, right? And the vagus nerve does a lot of things, but primarily it helps you activate your parasympathetic nervous system. That's what calms you down, right? So, and if you don't have access to a spa facility, you can also mimic this in your home, right? So hot shower, cold shower, hot shower, cold shower. So if you're a registered nurse watching this and you're working 12-hour shifts and you've been trying to lose this stubborn belly fat, you've been trying to just be consistent with your health, and you've been blaming yourself, stop that. Stop blaming yourself because 9 times out of 10, you're probably working in a plan that was not made for you. That plan was made for somebody working 9 to 5, somebody who's not making life or death critical decisions every day and is chronically stressed. So this is what I designed the Hot Nurse Protocol for, to give you the support and structure that you need. Once you actually get structure in your life, right? Meaning you actually know what to do for your body to lose the weight. And you have the support to hold you accountable so you can be consistent, especially in the beginning. I'm holding your hand, making sure you're getting things done. I'm guiding you. And then you start to see these results. The results is what gives you the motivation, right? That's what gives you the motivation to keep going. Plus, when you start feeling better, you start feeling more energized, you start sleeping better. That's what reinforces everything you're doing so you can be consistent, right? If you feel like this would be valuable for you, I'm gonna add the link in the description. Fill out the form on that link. Let's have a quick call and see if you'd be a great fit for this program. But I really appreciate you for watching this. If you got a ton of value, you definitely want to check this video out too because it'll be just as valuable. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.